I'm from India, but I'm studying in Ukraine.
$2,000 to $3,000 a month for a
Monthly.
price.
My yearly fees is $4,000 in Ukraine.
Perhaps now you speak like 5 or 6 languages.
Should I speak in Ukrainian now?
That's like the most original reason I've ever heard for choosing a place to study.
I remember the exact date when the war started. It's like 24th February, and we suddenly got up. It was like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. We were sleeping. Then we went out and we saw like we can see some smoke. We are evacuating you. You should cross the border and reach any 4 countries. Some years we were doing online classes for 1.5 years, and after some years we decided to go back to Ukraine. If it gets membership status of European Union, then our degree is much more accredited to all the countries in the European Union. Like I directly changed from plus 35 to around minus 15 in Ukraine. I have never seen snow before coming to Ukraine. It actually feels like heaven.
Welcome to this fourth episode of the Medical Education Podcast. And today we have here Rohith Gowdru Basavaraj.
Yeah, yeah.
I hope I've
Thank you.
pronounced
Thank
it
you
right.
for having me here.
Welcome, Rohith. Thank you for coming. And so the way I met Rohith is that I think something like 2 years
Yeah.
ago, I think you wrote me, you followed me on my Instagram page, and you wrote me something. And then, as I often do, I went to check your profile, and I saw you were studying in Ukraine. The war had just begun, or at least had begun like 6 months ago, and I was like, well, I hope everything's fine. And to some degree, I was a bit worried, but also a bit curious. And I was like, so how are things actually working? Are you having classes? Is life going on as normal? I just hoped for the best, and 2 years went on. And then I decided to contact you again. After all, I think back then I didn't even have a podcast. And so I was like, okay, so let's see. So then, Rohith, are you still in Ukraine? Did you move countries? Is medical school still going on? So I actually already know the answers because I asked you before this podcast. But I think we could start from this. Are you still studying in Ukraine? Does your university still work? Are things going on?
Yeah, my university is do working and we do attend offline classes there, and it's working still. And most probably it's because my university is in the western part of the Ukraine, which is much
Yes,
safer now.
correct me if I'm mistaken. You study at Ivano Frankivsk University.
Yeah,
It's
am
somewhat.
studying at Ivano Frankivsk National Medical University. Yes, you are right. So it comes in the western part of the Ukraine.
To those that do not know a lot about Ukraine, unfortunately, for the very worst reasons nowadays, a lot of people know about the geography of Ukraine. A couple years ago, if you asked people, where is Lviv, where is Kiev or Kharkiv, no one knew, and yet
No one.
nowadays we do. But for those that do not know, where is Ivano Frankivsk? Is it close to Lviv, close to the border?
Yeah,
with,
it is close to Lviv. It is too close to Lviv. Around 1.5 hour journey. It's just few miles away.
If correct if I'm mistaken, but I believe I'm not mistaken about that, you are from India.
Yeah.
Where are you from exactly? What's your city? What's your region?
Actually, I am from Karnataka, and my city name is Devanagere, and I live in India. I am from India, but I am studying in Ukraine.
Yes, naturally. Which brings us to, I believe, the most interesting question. Because one of the reasons I've started this podcast is precisely to understand the difference between medicine in many countries, of course, and medical education, but also to show people the possibilities that they have.
Yeah,
to show people
of
that
course.
go to different countries.
Yeah,
And
sure.
so why did you go to Ukraine? So why not study, for example, in India? Why
Yeah.
not study in India? And of all countries available, why specifically Ukraine?
This is the common question everyone gets, that why not India? Because studying medicine in India is too expensive compared to other countries like Ukraine, Russia, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan. Like they offer a decent education, medical education at very affordable prices. So the more and more people are now going towards other foreign countries for doing medicine. In India, it's too expensive.
How does it compare? For example, how much does medical education cost in India versus in Ukraine? I'm going to give an example. Here in Brazil, for example, it usually costs around $3,000 a month, $2,000 to $3,000 a month for a
Monthly,
private institution.
monthly.
Yeah, okay. Yes, yes.
My yearly fees is $4,000 in Ukraine. In
Yes,
India, it's like, if I have to say in dollars, it's around $10,000 to $12,000 per year. If it's a private college, and if we get it with a good marks in government seat. And in India, the other
let me
reason
make it.
is we have a lot of competition. Around 20 to 25 million people write the exam. The exam is called NEET, and in that exam, around we have only around 80,000 seats, and the competition is very high, as we are giving around 20 million people are competing for just 80,000 seats. It's too much people like fighting for very few seats. So obviously, it's better option to look for other countries.
Yes, I was definitely expecting you to say something like that. And before that, a disclaimer, I said that medical university in Brazil costs $2,000 to $3,000 a month, something like $20,000, $25,000 a year. But that's a private university. I, for example, went to public university, which actually cost me nothing. And that's a
Oh,
whole different
great.
discussion, but that's not the point. I was expecting you to say something like $2,000 a year,
Yeah,
because I've
actually,
already
I said
interviewed,
it
for
as a
example,
lowest, but it can go as high as like 40, $50,000 per year. Some of the seats, like it depends on the college. If we have if he has got good enough marks, he can get that at the low price. But if his are bad, the price are too high, like $50,000 maybe.
I had already interviewed a Brazilian medical student. Actually, now she's a medical
Yeah.
doctor who spent 2 years in Russia before the war, of
Oh,
course. And she
lucky.
also told me in Kursk, and she also told me that she spent like $2,000 a year. So, yeah, yes, I'm very aware about this medical education tourism. And personally, I think it's a really interesting thing that you can go to another country that is more affordable. However, there's also all the difficulties and the particularities related to that. For example, was your university in English or in Ukrainian?
Our university, the method of teaching is completely English, and all the teachers will speak English. And we also have Ukrainian subjects, just because we need to, after fourth year, we need to talk to patients, we need to work in hospitals, so that for the communication case, we need to learn Ukrainian, and we have Ukrainian subject, and we have been learning Ukrainian.
As exactly
And
that's
even for daily day-to-day communication, we need Ukrainian. For buying groceries to going out anywhere, we need the language in the place which we live.
sure. Yes, that's pretty much universal. I always ask this question, but I already know the answer, because even when the teachers speak English, the patients often don't. So you end up learning the
Yeah.
language of the place. But after all, if you are staying 6 years in a place, it's just natural. Like, I do like to learn language, so I went, for example, to France in 2010, and I decided to learn French. And so nowadays I speak French. And then in
uh,
2019, and I went to the United Arab Emirates, and I decided to learn Arabic. And I speak
Arabic.
very little Arabic. So yes, of course, if I go to a country, I'm at least making an effort to learn. What's your native language? Do you natively speak Hindi or Tamil or what?
In India, like there are so many. India is culturally diverse, so we have so many languages. I come from a place called Karnataka. In this state, we speak Kannada. Kannada is my native language and it's my mother tongue. And
Wow.
majority of the yeah, in India there are so many languages, more than like 500 languages, even more. I don't know. Every region has its own language.
Do you feel like the British colonization from this point of view was a blessing in disguise because at least now everyone can communicate in English, or does it make no sense whatsoever?
Yeah, like it has English has become a common language with everyone. If we want to talk to some Indians, we use English. Actually, I will tell you an incident. I was in Turkey. I was living in a hostel to go to Ukraine because I was not getting visa at the time, and I met some foreigners from Australia and other countries, and we two Indians were also talking in English, and they were laughing at us and asking, "You are from the same country and you are talking in English. We are at least from different countries. We are talking in English."
Yes,
So
but
it happens. Like we are very close, like adjacent states from us, like Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Tamil Nadu. We speak in English with them because we have different languages.
I learned a lot about it after I started my Instagram page. Not so much the YouTube channel, but I have a lot of followers from India on my Instagram. I think it's around 35% of my followers. And so often people, not only from India, but people from many countries will just comment on their native language.
Yeah.
So people ask a question or just say, nice, I liked it. But they will say it, for example, in Urdu or in Hindi,
Yeah.
or I know Urdu is not from India. I'm well aware of that, but or in Uzbek, and they just use their language.
Yeah.
And so I usually try to translate, to at least answer. And so from this point of view, I started seeing some like weird alphabets, weird abjad symbols I had never seen before. And I went to look what it meant, and it was like, no, this is Magalasi, this is Punjabi, this is
Yeah.
Telugu.
Punjabi.
And I was
Yeah.
like, wow, these are languages that are spoken by like 70 million people and I
Yeah.
had never heard about them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can
And so,
speak Hindi too, Hindi, English, Kannada, and I can understand Telugu and Tamil a little bit because in Ukraine we live with all people from all the states. By hearing languages, we somewhat get used to that.
yes, and I totally understand when you say that you talk to each other sometimes in English, because, for example, my native language is Portuguese, and here in Brazil everyone speaks Portuguese, but our neighboring countries here speak Spanish. And Spanish is very alike to Portuguese.
Yeah,
You can somewhat understand, it's mutually intelligible. And yet I often prefer to talk to Spanish speakers in English because at least we really have a common ground here. We both speak English decently. But coming back from this tangent, and so nowadays, how is your Ukrainian? Can you easily communicate in Ukrainian? I guess you speak good Ukrainian, so
yeah,
perhaps now you speak like 5 or 6 languages.
yeah. I can speak. Should I speak in Ukrainian now?
Sure, sure, I won't understand it, but some followers may.
Yeah. Okay. I will introduce myself in Ukrainian. Is that fine?
Okay, okay, go ahead, tell who you are and where
Uh,
you study, for example.
Мене звати Rohith. Я з Індії. Я живу в Україні. Я навчаюся Івано-Франківську національного медичного університету. 4 курс. Я живу в гуртожитку. Till I say more. If it's a question, I can answer.
Okay, okay, great, it's fine. I can pick a few words. Some things are very similar from language to language. I
Yeah,
think
there are few words.
universitat or something like that. I can guess it probably means university, but overall, I pretty much did not understand anything. But thank you for your contribution. I'm sure our Ukrainian speaking followers will understand it.
Yeah.
And so, how was the process of going from India to Ukraine? First of all, okay, so first thing before anything else, why Ukraine, for example? Why not
Yeah.
Georgia or Russia? Of course,
Okay.
no one would go to Russia now, but before the war, there was nothing to tell anyone it's going to happen, for example.
Yeah, okay, I will answer. Why Ukraine and why not other countries like Georgia, Russia, Uzbekistan? The first thing is compared to other countries like Georgia, Georgia is pretty expensive, and Ukraine, the cost of living is much affordable, and it's cost-effective country, and the nature, people, it's like before war, it was like a best country to do medicine, but after war it's a little bit difficult to do there, and Russia is also good in case it's also affordable country, and some other countries education is not much better like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. So compared to those countries, Georgia, Russia and Ukraine are better, and Ukraine and Georgia are better actually. Georgia is actually more better, but it's more costly.
It makes sense. You mentioned a
Yeah.
lot about cost of living. So
Yeah.
where do you live, for example, in Ukraine? I'm not sure whether, I think now you are currently in India at
Yeah.
this very moment, but when in
Yeah.
Ukraine, do you have like a dorm at a university? Do you rent an apartment? Uh, do you eat at restaurants? Do you make your own food? Do you have a cafeteria at the university? How do your costs and your daily life
Okay.
work there?
Okay, I will tell you. We live in a government hostel dormitory. It's a university dormitory where we live that, and we cook our own food. In every floor, we have a kitchen for a general kitchen where we cook food and we eat. Because in restaurants, your Indians won't actually like the Ukrainian foods much because we are used to eat Indian food, so we try to cook by ourselves and eat that. It's not like Ukrainian foods are bad, but we like more Indian kind of dishes because Indian dishes are more delicious. So we try to cook that, and it's very affordable. If we daily eat outside in restaurants, it would be too expensive for a student who is studying abroad. So budget-friendly option is to cook by ourselves in a kitchen which we have given in an hostel.
Yes, I had an opportunity to eat some Indian food when I was in Dubai, for example, and it's very characteristic. It's very spicy compared to European food, for
Yeah,
example.
it's too spicy.
It's quite different. And in this dorm, for example, you live, do only foreigners live there, or do also some students attend the university in Ukrainian, for example, also live there?
Yeah,
Is it only for foreigners?
no. In our hostel, everyone lives together. People from Africa, Morocco, Egyptians, and some people from Poland. Everyone live together. Even Ukrainians. In our admissions room, there are Ukrainians and boys, girls. Everyone live in the same hostel.
And are the Indians very represented there? Is the majority of people there from India? A small
Yeah.
portion? Most of them.
No, majority of the peoples are Indians there. For among foreign students, like around 80% it's Indians, and 15% it's maybe like African, Nigerians, and remaining 5% other countries. Majorly it's Indians who choose Ukrainian university there.
Yeah, I find that very easy to believe because it's like I said, 35% of my followers are from India, for example. I think like one in every five people in the world is from India. So it's very easy to understand
It's
why.
you can find Indians everywhere you go. Any country, any part of the land in this earth, you can find Indians there.
Albeit not to the same degree, but you also say that about Brazilians here in Brazil. Particularly when you go to a country in the Americas like the United States, it's very common to find someone speaking Portuguese. But coming back to the original idea, so how do you asked why you went to Ukraine, not to another country, for example, and so how was the process? Did you just go to the university website and apply, or is there an agency, someone that does it back in
Yeah,
India?
there is an official agent through which we have to apply, and they will provide us visa and other related documents like invitation letter and other documents. So through the agent, we will pay for the agent, and agent will do the most of our work for the first time. like post vika, which is a temporary residency, which will allow us to stay for 6 years in Ukraine for during our study period. It's like TR, temporary residency. So they help with all those documents and admission in our university. They have like a tie-up with the university. There will be an official contractor or agent who will help us in getting admission.
And Gigi's agents work only with Ivano Frankivsk University. What's the name of the university? Is it called Ivano Frankivsk University or does it have a different name?
No, it's called like it's a government university, so it has Ivano Frankivsk National Medical University.
Okay. And so, did you get to choose which university you wanted in Ukraine, or is it a bit like a straightforward path for it? Like, if you want to go to Ukraine,
No,
then it's Ivano-Frankivsk University,
no,
National Medical University.
yeah, I researched a bit about all the universities in Ukraine, and like somewhat my brother was saying, in east part of the Ukraine, like Kharkiv, I knew like war was going on, but not in a large scale. Like every country has war in their border, so I thought like so I should avoid border universities like Kharkiv, Poltava, Sumi. These are the border states, so I thought to avoid them. Next, I in the west part, like Lviv University, there were like Vinnytsia, Ivano-Frankivsk, and Chernovitzy. Among these, Lviv and Vinnytsia are much more expensive. Around they are 5,000 or $5,500 per year, and Ivano-Frankivsk were $4,000 per year, and the FMG MCI passing rate was much better in Ivano-Frankivsk compared to last 5 years. FMG is the exam which is given by Indians after coming to India. So from our university, the result was much more better. So I
Okay, so
thought to choose. Yeah, you can.
so about the FMGE, I think, for medical graduate exam, for a medical graduate exam.
Examination. Yeah, you're
So
absolutely right.
what's the relation between each and the university? I think I missed that part.
Okay, compared to other university, IFNMU, Ivano-Frankivsk National Medical University has had better passing percentage. Like
Okay.
27 to 30% of the people who graduated from Ivano-Frankivsk University qualified the FMG exam. So it's like kind of good results compared to other university. Why did I choose Ivano? And
Ultimately,
other reason why Ivano is like it's not a tourist place. Lviv is like a tourist place. You may be like feel like roaming around. If it's a tourist place, you can't focus on studies. So if in Ivano there is nothing much touristic to go roam around or see, it's like a just simple everywhere you can see just buildings. It's like apartments, much commercial area, not a tourist place, but yet it's beautiful in winters.
that's like the most original reason I've ever heard for choosing a place to study. Of course, not the only reason, but personally, I went exactly the opposite way because when I needed to choose my medical university, here in Brazil, we take a single test. I believe it must be somewhat similar to India. We take a single national test, and then based on our results on the test, we apply to different universities. I could apply to many different universities, and I decided to try a big, preferably interesting city. So I ended up going to Rio de Janeiro. So it was pretty much the opposite logic.
You went for most popular city.
Yes, I managed to find one of the most touristic and expensive places. And
Yeah,
so when
if
you
it's touristic, it would be expensive. That's why Lviv and other places are expensive. As Lviv, Kiev.
went to Ivano-Frankivsk University, did you have to take a test or was it an interview? What was the selection process like? How was your
Yeah,
admission process?
after reaching Ukraine, we went into the university and we had an entrance examination for the first day. After the results, they will select the students and get admitted into the university.
So you
We had
could
an entrance examination. Yeah.
so you could hypothetically go all the way to Ukraine and then not get admitted. It is possible.
But most of the students will get it's like a basic science questions.
Okay.
So anyone who is a medical student, they were able to answer if they are like have some knowledge about science. It's like basic anatomy, physiology questions. So if they are so dumb, they may fail.
Okay. Makes sense. There's a lot of logic to it. Okay, so let's get to the elephant in the room, the big elephant in the room, of course, which is the fact that I would probably have interviewed you anyway because you went from India to Ukraine, so two very different cultures, an interesting story. And so if your story was
Yeah.
from India to Georgia, for example, I would probably be interviewing you the same way. But you actually went to Ukraine, which was invaded by
Yeah.
Russia a few years ago, and so everything started revolving around the war, and that's how most people got to know that Ukraine existed because it was invaded by Russia. And so let's begin with the very first question. Did you actually leave the war, for example? Did you see any bombings on your city? Did you get time without, for example, electricity or water? Did you actually personally experience something from the war, or did you get out very early, for example?
Yes. Obviously, staying in Ukraine, we have to experience all those things. Actually, I remember the exact date when the war started. It's like 24th February. No one knew war is going to happen. There was some news like Russia is going to attack Ukraine, but we were not expecting that it will attack Ukraine in large scale so that our city is going to be attacked by missiles, our nearby airports, everything. Actually, we were sleeping and we got a call from our home like Russia is attacking Ukraine and we are seeing it on a news channel. And we suddenly got up. It was like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. We were sleeping. Then we went out and we saw like we can see some smoke. It was not near, but like a far away, like 15 kilometers, 10 kilometers far away. We can just see the smoke. They were attacking the main airports of all the cities. We were safe, but it was like a threatening alarm for us. We should leave the country, and even government sent a message: "We are evacuating you. You should cross the border and reach any four countries." Like they gave us options like Slovakia, Romania, and uh, Hungary. Slovakia, Romania, Hungary, and Moldova. Through four countries, we could get evacuated, and from there Indian government arranged a flight to India. They sponsored our flight. We came to India through flight which we were sponsored. And after some years we were doing online classes for 1.5 years. And after some years we decided to go back to Ukraine. I applied for a Turkish visa and I got a Turkish visa and I went to Turkey. And from there I applied a Moldova visa. From Moldova I crossed the border of Ukraine and reached the Ukraine because uh, like airspace is closed in Ukraine, so we can't directly fly from India to Ukraine. So I have to choose any other countries to travel to Ukraine. And Moldova embassy in India was not issuing visa and it was not working. So I went to Turkey, and from there I applied Moldova embassy in Turkey. So I applied a visa there and I stayed there for 10, 12 days. I got a visa, and from Turkey, then I traveled to Moldova. From there, I reached Ukraine. It was a struggle. Reaching Ukraine was also a struggle after war. Next, after reaching there, it was like peaceful, no worries, no disturbances. Everything was going fine until 1 year. And like few months back, like 4 to 5 months back, we have an exam. After 3 years, we give an exam called Croc 1. Means in English, it's step 1 exam. Step 1, similar to USMLE step 1, you can relate to that. All non-clinical subjects we have to prepare and we have to give for the exam. During preparation of this exam, as soon as like it was like 3 to 4 months for the exams, and the intensity of the war increased, and it was so high. We are getting power cuts of around 14 to 15 hours some days it's 18 hours, and we literally had from 5 to 6 hours of electricity. In that time we need to cook food, we need to charge our devices, and we need to prepare for the exam because when there is no electricity, we can't get mobile network. Most of the mobile network won't work when we don't have electricity. So it and mobile network is essential to practice tests and see videos. And nowadays online studying is more important. So we were not able to study properly. Still, luckily, we managed to clear the exam and get promoted to the next year. Yeah, during that time we had, as soon as the exam finished, war intensity decreased, and we have now at present we don't have much power cuts in our city. Sometimes we have water issues. Water issue is not a thing, but the power cuts are the issues.
Well, the first point I would like to make is that it's interesting how everything seems to work so well until it starts breaking down. You mentioned that thing about going to Turkey to get a Moldova visa and getting a Turkey visa to go to Turkey to get a Moldova visa to get to Ukraine. And we are so used, for example, to just flying from one country to the other. And then when we see things like stopping working, it's like, oh, this is much more complex than I originally imagined. But the second point is that it must have been a really surreal experience, especially in the first days, because I believe everything can relate to some degree to another surreal experience which we had, which was the COVID pandemic. It was somewhat
Yeah,
surreal for me because at least, and I am a medical doctor, so of all people, I shouldn't be that surprised by it. But I had heard, for example, of the Black Plague in the Middle Ages and the Spanish flu in the 1930s, and it looked like something from the past. We are not going to have this again. And what we did, and
yeah,
it's a bit of a feeling of living history. It's like, really? This is happening during my lifetime while I am here? And I imagine it must have been something like that in Ukraine. I didn't expect Russia to attack Ukraine, but I wasn't there to see
yeah,
smoking coming from the airport. So, I imagine it must have been really weird, really like, is this really happening while you were there?
yeah. Unexpected, completely unexpected experience, and I never wish to have it again because it was so much struggle reaching the borders, and there were a lot of queue in the border. Crossing the border is a different story. Like it's like a lot of struggle because so many people want to cross the border from different countries. There were like in borders we waited for around 24 hours standing in the line, and we didn't able to cross the border. I was able to cross the border, but so many people, like there were, it's like a physical challenge. You need to push and you should go, or else you will stay back whole day because the stronger people they will push you and they are going. So we able to contact Indian embassy and they made some arrangements. They made a bus to cross the border and somehow we able to reach. But there is a lot of struggle. Like without food, water, we were standing in the lines for the whole day in the border, and police and military there to stop the people who are pushing, who are using their physical strength to stop them. They were using pepper sprays. There were some in some borders they were firing, so there was a lot of struggle even crossing the border. It's like a nightmare. You can't imagine.
Yes, I believe it's kind of what you said. It's weird how it can be a nightmare even so far from the active conflict. Like
Yeah,
the shots were being fired 1,000 kilometers away, and yet even there, the border, it was just chaos, just this very problematic situation. I'm not sure exactly what the right word would be to describe it. And so you, after you left Ukraine, you spent two years in India. How long did you stay in remote classes?
1.5 year to be precise. I think so. 1.5 year.
At which point of your medical school were you at? For example, were you already seeing patients? Were you in a more theoretical studies? Which year were you at?
After completing the first sem, we went. I did my second, third, and fourth sem online. Three sems I did it online, 3 semesters. And some students went even for the third semester, they went for offline classes, but I went from fifth semester for
And
offline classes.
do you feel it worked out decently? Was the education still working? Did you actually learn enough during this period? Of course, it's not going to be as good as being at university, but overall, do you feel it worked out to kept your normal medical curriculum?
Yeah, it's but as studying period like second, third, and fourth semester, these were like more of non-clinical subjects like physiology, biochemistry. Most of this is not taught in practical, so it was not a much problem for studying it online, as you know. And other subjects we had like microbiology. As this in past 2 years there were not much clinical subjects, so it was not hard doing online, and it was like fair enough working. University was working properly, so we had no issues. After from third year I started going to university in Ukraine, so yeah, obviously in offline there were no like outcomings, or it was better.
That's exactly what I imagined. That pretty much intuitive. That if it's during the theoretical, the basic science years, it's better because that's not exactly when you are seeing patients. When you actually went back to Ukraine, was it like an
Yeah.
option or was it like required? How did it work out? What did the university say? If you want to, you can come back, or we are ending online classes, you have to come back. How did it work?
No, it was always an option to go back to Ukraine. Still, online classes are going on. We can take online classes until the war ends. But as it's not compulsory to go to Ukraine, but we thought it's better to do offline classes, as it's not a good thing to study in home online classes whole years, that to a medical education. So we thought to go to Ukraine by a lot of struggle, getting 2, 3 visa from different countries and reaching there. Because at the end of the day, you should see the patient, talk to them, relate to them. So that's how medicine works, right?
Did most of the foreign students at the university go back? By now, for example, are most people actually back? Or as a general rule, did most people
Yeah.
stay on online classes? Did they go back to the university, or did they transfer to a university in another country, for example? How did the percentages work out? Did most
Okay.
students go one way or the
Okay.
other?
We were around like 300 people. In 300 people, around 100, around 175 people took transfer, and we are 125 left with. And in 125, 25 are doing online, and 100 people we are going to the offline university. If we divide into percent, it's like 60% of the people took transfer, and 10% are doing not like 5% are doing online, and 30%, 30 to 40% people are attending offline classes.
And if you wanted to
Most of
transfer,
them took transfer. Okay,
If you
tell me.
wanted to transfer to another country, how would it have worked? Would you have to go find another university yourself, or did your university have some kind of agreement?
I wanted to take transfer. I need to find an agent again, and I need to pay them again a lot of money, and then they would do all the works, and then I could have get transferred to the other countries. The reason why I didn't took transfer, there were like not much good options. It's not ethically right to go to Russia from Ukraine, and to other countries like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan. It's compared to those countries, Ukraine education was better as I thought, and Georgia was a good option, but it's little expensive for our budget and the cost of living. The university fee is actually not high. It's like 5,000, $1 or $2,000 more. We can afford that, but the thing is, the cost of living is too much high. Like it's like 3 to 4 times more. If I am spending every month here around $200, I need to spend around $1,000 there, like 800 to $1,000 in Georgia.
You mentioned the ethical side of it, and
Yeah.
it's It's quite, I find it really hard to evaluate. I think it was the day before yesterday that I posted a video about something else, but was talking about immigration something, and someone commented that even nowadays it's probably easier to get into Russia for medical education during the war than into the United States, for example. And
Yeah,
on a practical side, I totally agree. Yes, it is easier. And of course, I responded to it, and I mentioned that yes, I do agree. However, I would strongly advise against going to Russia for three major reasons. First, because you can eventually be coerced into joining the army, even as a foreigner. You are there, you could be threatened with deportation or something like that. So why run that risk? Second, because you could be a collateral damage of the attacks. And third,
yeah,
because the country is under sanctions and the economy is likely to worsen.
yeah.
And of course,
That was also the reason. There were like so much ban on the country, so many countries don't validate the Russian degree.
and
Russian medical degree is not valid. Yeah.
I wondered myself whether I should include a fourth reason, which is that it would be like unethical to go to Russia now after it invaded Ukraine and something like that. And I think it's really complicated because I don't have a very firm opinion about whether it is unethical to go, for example, to medical university in Russia right now. Because from one side,
Yeah.
yes, Russia is the aggressor country that invaded Ukraine. So to some degree, it could easily be argued that it's morally wrong to support Russia. Yes, one shouldn't support Russia. On the other hand, the people in the university have nothing to do with the war, for example. The professors, the students there, they did not start the war. Maybe they don't even support the war. Perhaps the professors of the
Yeah.
university are against the war. So what I said is that I don't have a firm opinion about that. I would advise against going to Russia, but I'm not sure whether it's unethical. And I asked if you have a firm stance on it, and I don't. It's
Yeah,
not.
well, yeah, okay. I will explain you why. For me, it's like my personal opinion. It's not moral. Morally, it's not right for me to go to Russia because I have been in Ukraine and I have friends in Ukraine and I have my teachers in Ukraine and I have seen the suffering of Ukrainian people. How could I feel going back to Russia? Because they are the like main reason for attacking the Ukraine. Even the Russian people are not the reason, but still, it's not morally right for me to go to Russia.
And also because you would have to pretty much hide your opinion. Because if you went to Russia and started talking to everyone that you were in Ukraine, the war is absurd and
Yeah,
it's an aggression, you would end up getting arrested. You would end up in
yeah,
prison, not in university. So yeah, you would have to pretty much stay quiet about it. So
yeah,
yes, it absolutely makes sense. I wouldn't visit Russia right now either, regardless of anything. In fact, I sometimes see, for example, people on YouTube. There are many people that record, for example, tourism videos on YouTube, and some people are still going to Russia, and I'm like really into a country at war, like, but okay.
yeah.
Uh,
Still, many people are going to Russia, even in spite of war. And the main thing is sanction. Like if their degree is not valid worldwide, and what's the point of studying there? They won't have that flexibility with their degree to go to anywhere in the world. They should be going to somewhere in the like they can come to India, but not in other countries like US, UK won't accept the Russian medical degrees or any Russian degrees as a part of sanction.
And speaking about degree validity and accreditation, we brought an extremely important question, which is also something I always ask people. How, I'm not sure if that's the best word for it, how accredited is your Ukrainian diploma? For example, once you go back to India, you have to take the foreign graduate medical exam.
Yeah.
But if you were, for example, to go to another country in Europe, let's say you want to move to Germany, could you use your Ukrainian diploma, or would you have to accredit it as well? I'm aware that, for example, the United States requires everyone pretty much to go to the USMLE, except for some Canadians. But how is the situation with your Ukrainian diploma?
Actually, Ukraine is, if it gets a membership status of European Union, then our degree is much more accredited to all the countries in the European Union. Like it can be any country like Switzerland, Germany, Austria, Luxembourg, any of the countries in the Europe, France. But now it is negotiating for the membership. Now it's a candidate and it has applied for membership of European Union. But still we can go to the other European countries like Germany, but we just need to clear the language examination, German language examination. After that we can work in German. But for other countries, they have an exam. We need to clear that if we are from other countries. But if Ukraine joins EU, we don't need to write those exams. Hopefully, in near future, they will be member of EU.
Speaking of which, what do you intend to do about the future? Have you ever considered staying in Ukraine, for example? Are you for sure going back to India? Do you intend to move to the United States? We will pursue medical residency, and where? What are you thinking about it?
At present, I have never thought of staying in Ukraine for a long time. I just want to complete my degree. I want to graduate from my university, and either I am thinking of going back to my home country, India, and writing FMG exam, and then doing internship, and then writing a PG exam. That's a bit long process, but I have also options of other countries back of my mind, like UK. I can write PLAB exam and go to UK. Any of the English speaking countries like UK, Canada, US, New Zealand, and Australia. Just because in English, if I do post graduation in any of the English speaking countries, these are valid in India. So again, after completing those degrees, I can directly come to India without FMG exam or any other exam. If I haven't given them, still I can work in India. So as a backup option, I am thinking to choose, and it's much better to live in an English speaking country where we won't have language barrier.
Absolutely. Can't argue with that. And so, just to wrap up this Ukrainian education part, so overall you've been at it for a few years. How do you feel Ukrainian medical education compares to Indian medical education? It's cheaper, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think it's on par? Do you think it depends a lot on the university? Overall, are you getting the same results, better results, slightly worse? How do you think it works?
Okay. Obviously, we will get more clinical exposure in India as we have a lot of population, and we can see like in government hospital, hundred and maybe thousands of patients coming daily. So we can practice more. In case of Ukraine, as of now, because of war, there are more patients, but in general, there are not much patients. Our patient flow is relatively low compared to India, where we can have more clinical exposure and practicality. But still, at the end of the day, we are the students. We need to put effort and study. Studying is our part. It may be any university. We should study by ourselves. So it's our part too. And yeah, some universities are better, and in India we have better clinical exposure. Remaining that part, it's fine doing in Ukraine, because at the end of the day we need to study. So it's better doing in Ukraine. And also there is not much difference, as after graduating from in Indian university you need to give an exam next, and the exam name is next national exit test. And even if I graduate from Ukraine, I need to give next the same exam. They are bringing up it in few years. Now we have to write FMG for in medical graduate examination, but they are removing that because of some issues. So they will bring up next in next examination, both Indian and foreign medical graduates have to give the same examination. So there will be no difference at all. So that's my opinion about that.
Like the USMLE, so you're India is pretty much moving towards the United
Yeah,
States system, which is the
like
same test for everyone, and it's both for accreditation and for people who graduated there.
yeah, and yeah, and it's exactly like a copy of USMLE. They have next one and next two, and next one is a MCQ based examination, and next two is like clinical case discussion. Like there would be patient CCD.
Do you get to do
OSCE. Yeah, yeah. The second part is like OSCE, Objective Structured Clinical Examination.
Do you get to do procedures in Ukraine? And would you get to do that in India? You mentioned a lot about, for example, the clinical experience you get, but things like, for
Yeah.
example, placing a central venous line, suturing a patient, intubating a patient. Do you get to do any of this as a medical student in either Ukraine or India?
Yeah, until now I have just finished the third year, so I have been seeing like suturing and other things like intravenous injection, intramuscular injection, and blood transfusion, IV, other things I have been seeing. But yeah, injection I have got opportunities to inject to the people, intramuscular, IV, and other things. In India, yes, obviously we can do much more things, and I have got chances to auscultate and check the blood pressures and other things, but not like complicated things. They just make us to observe, not do like doing suturing. I have not done suturing on any patient, but we can practice in a suture pad, CPR, and other things. They have taught us many things.
Yes, that's there's some duality there. There are countries where only residents, for example, get to suture and something like that, and there are countries where medical students do, and the same goes for intubation, for example. And on one hand, if you get to do it as a medical student, you exit medical school better prepared. But on the other hand, do you really want medical students to do this on the patient? So there's always this conflict there. And I believe it's in most countries. And so, since we've talked about most of the important things, so to speak, let's get to some of the more, I'm not sure, interesting things. Just looking at some of the pictures you sent a lot of them, and most of them I will spread throughout the episode when we're talking about it. But for example, there are lots of pictures of snow. There's so much snow, and I think
Yeah.
that's one of the more characteristic things of Ukraine and all the other nearby countries. Does it snow where you come from in India? I know I've already asked your region and your city, but I don't know the geography of India. So is it very hot? Does it snow in the winter? Are you used to it? Had you ever seen snow before? Did you see it every winter?
No, it like actually I come from south of India. In India, actually in north part of India, only in Kashmir we can see snow, not in any other states. So it's like much higher temperature in my place. It's like around 45. Sometimes even in summer it may go to like 45, 50 degrees Celsius. Normally it would be around like 35 degrees Celsius. It's pretty hot here, and I directly changed from plus 35 to around minus 15 in Ukraine. In Ukraine in winters it may go like minus 10, minus 15. It was so hard. The first time I went, I didn't even carry any jacket or any like outer coat for me to cover. I was not expecting, it was too cold. I went in the month of December and it was like too cold. I just had a sweater. So in Ukraine, yeah, it's winter is beautiful, but it's too cold. We should cover ourselves.
Yes, there are a lot of images here. I'm not sure if this is a train, for example, of all everything covered in snow and all the trees, and it's pretty beautiful. There's a lot of parks here and Christmas decoration. I think it must have been close to Christmas.
Yeah, yeah, because that was the month of December. So in the month, I went in the month of December. So there was like Christmas decoration all over there. It was actually before war. After war, there are no celebrations in Ukraine. Like not a grand celebration like before war. No New Year celebration, no Christmas celebration. So because of war, they are not celebrating it.
Would you live in a place like this from the climate and appearance point of view? For example, if you move it to the UK, actually it doesn't snow really significantly in the UK, but if you move it, let's say, to Canada, for example, or to New Zealand, and it snowed, can you live well with it?
Yeah, now I'm pretty much adjusted to this weather. I can bear this. with proper covering I can bear this weather. So it's I kind of love this weather because winter I have never seen snow before coming to Ukraine. It actually feels like heaven.
Great. There's a video here of a hospital, and there are some people, I'm not sure if they are singing or there's some commotion here. What's that?
I will explain you the situation. Actually, we were having a class. During the time, we heard some sound. So teacher said, "Let's go out," and I started to shoot that. Actually, it's during Christmas. Ukrainians have a tradition. The students of the university dress up in a traditional way. They will make up stories and they will act according to that, and they will sing, they will act, and they will dance according to the traditional Ukrainian songs. And they will go to the all the departments of the university and other places in the city, and they will dance and they will like spread the cultural thing of their ethnicity of Ukraine. It was actually a beautiful seeing that they have a story and a theme in that whole video. You can see that.
So this is not the hospital, this is just the university. These are the university corridors.
Yeah, it's a university corridor.
Great.
We are wearing like a white coat. In hostel, we won't wear white coat.
I'm sure you sent me other videos later, so we'll have even more to add to this. But pretty much, I believe we've exhausted most of the most important topics here. And we can come back to it, for example, once you're closer to our graduation. Then we can revisit and see all that went from here to then. So maybe let's reschedule another podcast episode in 2 or 3 years to see how things worked out. For now, overall, as a last question, do you think it was worth it in the end with everything that happened? Would you have done it differently? Do you think overall things worked out well?
Yeah, until now, yeah, it's pretty much okay. But I don't think it's worth it putting a lot of effort, struggle, and studying in Ukraine. But yeah, still for getting the medical degree, it's kind of some kind of a hard work. Everyone have to face some hardship in their life, and maybe this is the one I have to face and get through it. So I'm trying to do it, and that's pretty much. I think it will be worth when I graduate from the university and I will be a good doctor. I think worth it will be worth of doing so much struggle.
Well, thank you so much, Rohith, for being here today. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me here.
It was a
Thank you
really
so much.
interesting story, not only because of the war, but also because of your story of going to a different country and study and seeing a different culture. Yeah. And it was great having you, hearing you. Thank you for everyone that watched this episode to the end. And so, have a nice day. I hope I can see you again in some
You
2 or 3 years and revisit this episode. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Thank you to everyone.